Good morning. I hope that you've rested well and that you're looking forward to the day ahead. I pray that it will be a blessed day where you know much joy in our Savior Jesus Christ. Let me open us up in prayer. Father, thank you for enabling us to begin today by opening up your word and hearing it speak to us. I pray that we would know that full satisfaction comes only in our Savior Jesus Christ. It's in His name that we ask it. Amen. Okay, so this morning I want us to go to Ecclesiastes chapter 2. And I've entitled this particular devotional, "The World is Not Enough, Trying to Fill the God-Shaped Void in Life." Ask yourself, what makes you happy? And maybe even now, be drawing up a checklist. You might have a pen and paper to hand. What makes you happy in life? And what do people take in life? What do people do in life? What do people spend in life to make them happy? Think through those things that give you joy. And then ask, are these on their own fulfilling? On their own, do these things satisfy? Or do you find that you seek more, that you want more, that you need more, that you find yourself going back because, well, basically what you had last time is not enough? What we see in Ecclesiastes chapter 2 is Solomon continuing his journey towards joy, trying to find meaning and identity and purpose in life. And so he begins with saying in his heart, this is a phrase that he uses quite a bit in the opening chapters of Ecclesiastes, "I said in my heart, come, now I will test you with pleasure. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy yourself. Have a good time. But behold, this also was vanity. I said of laughter, it is mad, and of pleasure, what use is it? I searched with my heart how to cheer my body with wine, my heart still guiding me with wisdom, and how to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was good for the children of man to do under heaven during the few days of their life. I made great works. I built houses and planted vineyards for myself. I made myself gardens and parks and planted in them all kinds of fruit trees. I made myself pools from which to water the forest of growing trees. I bought male and female slaves and had slaves who were born in my house. I had also great possessions of herds and flocks, more than any who had been before me in Jerusalem. I also gathered for myself silver and gold and the treasure of kings and princes. I got singers, both men and women, and many concubines, the delight of the sons of man. So I became great and surpassed all who were before me in Jerusalem. Also, my wisdom remained with me, and whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. I kept my heart from no pleasure, for my heart found pleasure in all my toil, and this was my reward for all my toil. Then I considered all that my hands had done, and the toil I had expended in doing it, and behold, all was vanity, and a striving after wind, and there was nothing to be gained under the sun." Wow, you might be reading that and you might think, it sounded like Solomon had a lot. It sounds as though Solomon had everything anyone could have ever wanted. I mean, we go through the list. He did so many great things. He lived an extremely productive life. He had riches, and there's this extreme hedonistic lifestyle that he seems to be living, where he says that whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. Imagine having the resources to your hand where you can have whatever you desire. Money is not an object. Imagine that. What would you do if you were in that situation? Would it be good? Would it be bad? Would it be righteous? Would it actually satisfy? Solomon says, after all of this, I wasn't satisfied. After all of this, I looked and saw it's just a striving after wind. It's a waste of time. It's vanity. It's all futile. It does not fill the void in my life. Enjoy yourself. Have a good time. That's great. That's wonderful. We were created to enjoy various elements and aspects of life. God has created so many of these things that Solomon lists that he enjoys in a right and moderate way for enjoyment, for our good, for our blessing. But Solomon just goes in for excess. First of all, consider with me the world itself as a whole is not enough. Our sensual rush toward gaining the world is always going to end in this sense of vanity and void. All of the money in the world is not enough to satisfy our sensual appetites and cravings when all that we look at in life occurs just under the sun, when everything we're about is only centered on the here and now. We will forever be left wanting. We have these acronyms that are thrown around a good bit today. YOLO, YOLO, Y-O-L-O. It means you only live once. And so people say, you know, you only live once. Go on, do that. It's fine. Have your fun. Go on, do that. See what was good for the children of man to do under heaven. This is what Solomon seeks to do during the few days of their life. I, after all, only live once. Even if what I want to do is foolish, I only live once, so I'm going to do it anyway. If I can live in excess, fine, whatever, I only live once. You only live once. There's another, and this is called FOMO, F-O-M-O, fear of missing out. Whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. Why? Because I'm afraid that I would miss out. I desire it. Why not? If I have the resource, I can take it. I kept my heart from no pleasure, for my heart found pleasure in all my toil, and this was my reward for my toil. We try to make it make sense. Well, I work hard and I play hard, right? We only live once, yes, but the question is, are we really living when all we're doing is striving after only things under the sun? And there's the reminder, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world if he loses his soul? The reality is, on this earth, under the sun, yes, you only live once. It is appointed to man to die once, to live once, to die once, and after this comes judgment. So if we're living with life only lived once in our perspective and in our mindset, you only live once can lead us down all sorts of routes. Dangerous, satisfying, fulfilling to a degree, but ultimately empty and ultimately without meaning. The fear of missing out can cause us to do things and engage in things that we want to try out. We want to, if we have the resource, get what we want, but ultimately it doesn't satisfy on its own. It doesn't help. We entertain ourselves to death because of these. You only live once, fear of missing out. In the UK in 2020, and bear in mind, okay, we had a pandemic and loads of people were locked in and sometimes small space, you get that. But UK households on average watched 5 hours and 40 minutes of television. Now, you might think, well, that was just because it was a pandemic and we were in lockdown and people were in their houses. Of course, yeah, people would be watching a lot of TV. There's 24 hours in a day, 5 hours, 40 minutes, it's not that bad. But this was only up 47 minutes from the previous year when we didn't have a lockdown. Sometimes we gorge on things that can be enjoyable, and then we cease to enjoy them. Solomon goes through a list of pleasures that he enjoys, but one thing that he hones in on at first is wine. He says, I'm going to test you with pleasure, enjoy yourself. But behold, this also was vanity. I said of laughter, it is mad, and of pleasure, what use is it? So I searched with my heart how to cheer my body with wine. I'm feeling a bit down by all of this. You know, I'm going to test you with pleasure, but I think this is vanity. So maybe I just need to loosen it up a bit, right? Maybe I need to let my hair down. So I'm going to have some wine. I need to cheer up myself with wine. I'm not enjoying myself. Maybe it's a problem with me. Maybe I'm not confident enough. So what do? I try to shed some of those inhibitions with some liquid refreshment of sorts, and I become inebriated. Well, it doesn't satisfy. Solomon says it doesn't satisfy. My heart still guiding me with wisdom. He claims that his heart is still guiding him with wisdom. But at the end of it all, he still finds vanity and is striving after wind. The wine doesn't help. This pleasure of fun and games and having some wine even to try and give cheer in the fun and games. No, it's not satisfying. It all ends in vanity. So what? Well, we have to work. We have projects. We have things that we want to accomplish, goals, resolutions. All of that's very, very good stuff. So Solomon throws himself into various projects, and we read of those just a moment ago. I made great works. I built houses and planted vineyards for myself. I made myself gardens and parks. I planted in them all kinds of fruit trees. You think Solomon keeps very, very busy here. He's doing quite a lot of work, and he's adding to culture. He's adding to other people's enjoyment. Arguably, he's doing a lot of hard work. He is an architect, it would seem. He's building all of these different things. He's made pools from which to water the forest of growing trees. He knows irrigation. Clearly, he has great wisdom and knowledge concerning how to make things happen. But at the end of it all, he still says it's all vanity. It's a striving after wind. Your fun will not satisfy. Your work will not satisfy. Well, okay, it's what you're working towards, and it's where you have fun. So maybe if you're in the right place. So Solomon has property, yeah, and there's some things that he owns. He owns places. He owns things. He also owns people, right? He says, I bought male and female slaves, and I had slaves who were born in my house. I had also great possessions of herds and flocks, more than any who had been before me in Jerusalem. I gathered for myself silver and gold and treasure of kings and provinces. I gathered all of these treasures. I gathered even singers. Imagine having your own professional DJ in your house. Imagine having professional singers hang out in your house and jam on a daily basis, and you're probably not having to pay them much, if anything. You see, Solomon is living in excess. He's trying to find satisfaction. He's trying to find joy in all of these possessions and all of these things, but it's not working. Pleasure's not working. The wine doesn't help. His projects aren't working, although it is working. It's not working for him in fulfilling and giving meaning to his life. He has property, but there's still, at the end of it all, just vanity, striving after wind. He has prosperity. He is prospering, right? Inarguably, if you didn't catch that already, he is extremely wealthy. He does not have want of anything. He has people at his command. He has riches in excess, silver, gold, the treasure of kings and provinces, singers, both men and women, and many concubines, the delight of the sons of men. Okay, well, prosperity wasn't enough, so promiscuity. There were 1,000 women in Solomon's life, most of whom were not followers of the God of Israel. And that was a big problem. But he thinks, okay, well, fun and games, pleasure, It's not really working. Wine might help it along. No, it's still vain. Projects, work, no, it's not actually fulfilling. It's not giving that meaning I need in life. Property, I have all of these slaves, all of these possessions. Prosperity, treasure, it's great, silver and gold, amazing stuff. It's not satisfying. So the delight of the sons of men, concubines. Okay, I'll have all of these concubines at my disposal. I'll live a life of promiscuity. I mean, this is, in many ways, Solomon, the ancient day Hugh Hefner. He has power. He says, above anything and everything. Above anyone else. And he still is not satisfied. He's still not satisfied. I became great and surpassed all who were before me in Jerusalem. My wisdom remained with me. It's interesting. He keeps having to try to convince us that his wisdom is still there. I mean, this is a life of clear excess. You can tell that Solomon is out of control, but he's still saying, no, 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 I'm in control. I'm in control. I have wisdom. I'm in control. And he's not in control. And he knows it. He says, wisdom was still with me. Wisdom was still with me. Whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. I kept my heart from no pleasure. For my heart found pleasure in all my toil, and this was my reward for all my toil. But then he considers. He still has enough wisdom there to be honest and say, I've considered it all, and, well, it's all vanity. It's all a striving after wind. It's all a mist. The word vanity there has the connotation of a mist, of a very light fog that is there, a vapor that's there, and it just disappears. It goes away. And so Solomon concludes, there's nothing to be gained under the sun. The world is not enough. Our sensual rush to get more, to have more, to do more, to shout out, you only live once, to have whatever we want because we fear missing out, it will never produce enough that satisfies us. The world isn't enough to satisfy, to give us meaning, value, and purpose. So what then? Well, we recognize that we need more. So the world is not enough. We recognize the world is not enough. We're not satisfied with it, so we create some sort of self-religion. Epicureanism was a philosophy that the Apostle Paul actually deals with in Acts chapter 17. And Epicureanism stemmed from the individual Epicurus, a philosopher, who stated that pleasure was the chief good in life. He indicated that in order to derive the greatest amount of pleasure possible during one's lifetime, this was the supreme goal, derive the greatest amount of pleasure possible. Yet one should do so moderately in order to avoid the suffering incurred by overindulgence in such pleasure. Maybe Epicurus would look at Solomon and say, no, he's suffering because he's overindulged. Maybe that's what Epicurus would say. Emphasis in Epicureanism was placed on pleasures of the mind rather than on physical pleasures. And it's honestly a little complicated to unpack what the pleasures of the mind meant when most people are going to look at things only in regard to the pleasures that we can ourselves experience, the sorts of things that Solomon deals with. He's already said, though, that wisdom isn't giving him any pleasure. It's still in and of itself vain. Entitlement complexes abound. Narcissism is a significant problem. We tell ourselves that we're entitled to these things. So Solomon kind of has this self-religion where he says, I have wisdom, and because of my toil, I can do this. It's kind of the L'Oreal motto, because you're worth it, that Solomon is operating with. Yeah, no, I've worked hard. I'm entitled to this. I'm entitled, even if I'm breaking God's law, it's fine. I'm entitled to it. people will say, well, you do you, Solomon. You just keep it up. You dance to the beat of your own drum. But ultimately, that doesn't satisfy. Our sensual rush often leads to this self-religion, which, let's be honest, is selfish religion. It basically makes a cult out of me and you. And ultimately, maybe we'll, in God's goodness and grace, have a spiritual realization, which itself recognizes the world is not enough. It's not. The things in this world can never satisfy. The things in this world can never fulfill, give me meaning, identity, and purpose. The things in this world are never enough to fill that void that is in my heart and in my mind. The things of this world are not enough. The message in this passage of poetry centers on God's ultimate authority in heaven and on earth. Humans have mastered many things in this world, but some elements of our existence are beyond our control. We can't conquer time, for instance, and we're going to see in Ecclesiastes chapter 3 that we have a time for everything under the sun. We're not in control of it. God is. Our lives contain a mixture of joy and sorrow, pleasure and pain, harmony and struggle, life and death. Each season has its appropriate time in the cycle of life. Nothing stays the same, and we as God's children must learn to accept and adjust to the ebb and flow of God's design. Some seasons are difficult, and we may not understand what God is doing. But in those times, we should humbly submit to the Lord's plans and trust that He is working out His good purpose. It's my prayer that you and I will have this spiritual realization that the world is not enough. This realization that Solomon would have known and had initially when he had great wisdom, but that he forsook when he began to think he could find true satisfaction and true joy in the things of this world. Solomon goes, after experiencing all these things, into a negative spiral. He considers the vanity of living wisely. He thinks that living wisely is a very real problem. He says, I hated life because what is done under the sun was grievous to me, for all is vanity and a striving after wind. I hated all my toil. I hated it all. Solomon has gone from loving himself to hating himself. To the one who pleases him, God has given wisdom and knowledge and joy, but to the sinner He has given the business of gathering and collecting, only to give to the one who pleases God. This also is vanity and a striving after wind. He's concluded in this chapter with saying that there's nothing better for a person than that he should eat and drink and find enjoyment in his toil. This also I saw is from the hand of God. He recognizes apart from God, who can eat or who can have enjoyment? Apart from God, who can eat or have enjoyment? And at this point, we see a glimmer of hope that Solomon recognizes there's more than life under the sun. God is, and God is the rewarder of those who seek Him. So my prayer for you, and my prayer for myself is that we would recognize and always know that while this world will never offer what we need, we can enjoy the things in this world, and we should, that God has given in the right place, at the right time, the right purpose. But the things that are in this world will never fill in that God-shaped void in life. It's my prayer that you will know true meaning, true joy, true purpose in your Creator, the God who loves you, who gives His wisdom, which is above anything else that the world has to offer.